No, I didn't kill anybody. Look, I couldn't do that. I just wanted to beat my meat.
I played video games in a drunken haze. I was 17 years young.
Last week I got a tip from my buddy, the Bearded Diver, about a new batch of VHS at a local thrift store. I wasn't expecting much, honestly, just something new to dig in, but imagine my disbelief when I pulled this out.
I was wrong about you, little girl. You do still have some meanness in you.
So last night I finally had time to watch it and give my take on it. First though, let's take a shallow dive into the history of this odd movie. Drive-In Massacre is a horror film written and directed in 1976 by Stu Seagal and co-written by John F. Goff and George Buck Flower. It was released December 20th, 1976 in Los Angeles, and January 7th, 1977 across the rest of the US. I find that interesting as that means it predated both Halloween and Friday the 13th, so you can't even claim that this is a knockoff. And trust me, it certainly isn't. Finally, this should go without saying, but there will be spoilers, if you can even call them that. So let's fire this bad boy up and see what we got. Drive-In Massacre begins, where else? At the drive-in, where an angry man is waving cars in through our short opening credits.
Okay, come on. What, you got nothing less than a 20? You again, huh? All right, just give me the money, all right?
Moments later, we are inside of a car with a couple fooling around.
Come on. Boy, you... Hey, wait. I want to see the beginning of this again. I love this.
Alan, you've seen it 4 times.
Wait a minute. Let me see the beginning of this. I want to hear it. Let me get the speaker.
Dude is way too into this movie considering the circumstances. At one point, he leans outside of the car to pull the speaker closer.
Alan,
Come on, will you let me...
seen it 4 times.
I want to hear it. That's
Alan,
all.
come
Will you
on.
let me hear it?
Alan, come on.
Suddenly, he finds himself the subject of a brutal decapitation. And seconds later, his girlfriend is murdered as well in a Friday the 13th style shaft through the neck.
Said she was busy.
Damn, I wish we had a practical effects budget.
I said, why don't you have another drink?
That's right, boys. Why don't we all have another drink?
Should I just tell him?
Just tell him.
That's about the best thing you're going to see in this movie. We cut to some local police officers poring over the case. Checking in on the people who work at the theater, the owner is quickly ruled out since he was in Hawaii at the time and still is.
Well, let's take it from the top. Get the owner.
I checked him out. He's been living in Hawaii for about a year now.
The next name on the list in chain of command is the manager, Austin Johnson, the irritable man we saw at the beginning.
He's what you would call your perfect asshole.
God, this part of the soundtrack is awful. After being questioned by our 2 police officers, he is quick to respond in anger and complain for a bit about the position he's been left in.
A couple of horny kids got himself chopped up by some kook. So what? Besides, who really gives a damn, huh?
We do. That's why we're here.
I told Van Heusen that closing down the carnival, open this outdoor whorehouse, is going to bring nothing but problems.
What carnival?
Van Heusen's carnival, he operated right here on this very spot for 20 years. He closed it down about 15 years ago and opened up this trash heap.
We find out apparently there used to be a carnival on the very spot the drive-in is now sitting. Austin was left in charge after the owner, Mr. Van Heusen, ran off to Hawaii, leaving him with a dim-witted employee named Arlene behind the counter, and a half-wit charity case, as he calls him, who cleans up the grounds and lives and sleeps on the property in return.
Have you ever seen anyone strange around here? Someone you might think would be capable of something like this?
Yeah, I see them every night. Everybody that comes in here, they're crazy. And I see them all. You want to know why? Because when I get here, I got to come in and set up this refreshment stand because that broad I got working for me isn't even smart enough to pass first-grade math.
I thought you said you were the only one here.
That's a half-wit. He sweeps up around here.
All the time, at night too?
He sleeps there.
The police also interview the half-wit, whose name is Jeremy.
It's Garmy, the great Garmy. Ta-da!
And we find out that he used to perform as a geek in the carnival.
I lost all my teeth biting off snake heads and chicken heads, too.
He also apparently was taught how to swallow swords by Mr. Van Heusen himself and did so regularly until he had an accident.
Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest sword swallower in all the world.
No, not him. He's so stupid he'd cut his own throat if I gave him a knife.
He says he was the one who found the couple, and naturally the police question if he still has any of his swords since that was the weapon used on the two victims.
You used to be a sword swallower. Do you still have any of those blades?
Mr. Van Heusen lets me use his private collection.
Van Heusen has a collection of blades?
Oh, knives, swords, all kinds.
He reveals that he doesn't, but Mr. Van Heusen, the owner, has plenty, he says, but again, we know, and the police have confirmed at least, that he is indeed in Hawaii.
Did you ever see anything strange, anything unusual occur here?
Jeremy reveals there's another person possibly of interest to them, however.
There's one guy who comes every night, and he's a troublemaker. He never stays in one spot. He's always looking for girls or a couple that are smooching. You know what I mean.
He knows of a guy, a peeping Tom, who comes to the theater almost every night. But before we get much information about that, Austin comes up yelling at him to get back to work.
Hey, come on, will you? Let that scum be back to work. Come on, get this stuff cleaned up, will you?
The police leave without much further questioning. The next night, we find ourselves again at the drive-in theater where the movie holds for an unbearably long time on a car parking.
Frank Lawton.
What do you think of the soundtrack?
That's terrible.
Did he just wreck? Honestly though, major deja vu as we get these shots of yet another couple discussing and arguing about something unimportant to the plot, I'm sure. Apparently she's pregnant and he's married to another woman, I suppose. Who cares? But it's also cut with shots of an unknown man seemingly watching them. I guess it's the pervert. Eventually, the man watching the couple exits his vehicle while they are unaware, still making out. Where were the police that night?
The toughest thing about this kind of case is that there is no overall pattern for a psychotic killer.
There's a lot more uninteresting scenes at the police station where some dude, the chief I guess, profiles the killer, and late into the night we find the two main officers are still discussing the case.
We don't have any real proof on anybody.
Well, we got the weapon anyway.
I see evidence handling wasn't a careful practice in the 70s. Shouldn't that be bagged and tagged or something? So obvious first move, the officers bring Jeremy in for questioning and ask if he recognizes the blade.
Jeremy, you recognize this?
It was in those two young people. But I didn't touch it.
Yeah, I know. Coroner didn't find your prints on it.
They spend a lot of time questioning him about swords, his boss Austin, none of which lead to any useful information, but he does tell them he witnessed the peeping Tom exit his car last night, but was unable to see what he was doing. He did, however, capture the license plate number.
His car was right next to the murder car?
He got out of one side, and that's when I saw him. And then he crawled in between the cars, and then I couldn't see him anymore. Oh, but I got his license number, just like you asked me to.
Using the information, the officers get the address of the owner of the car in question, Mr. Orville Ingleson, whom they pay a visit to. And he's on edge immediately, as if he's hiding something.
We're police officers. Can we come in?
What do you want me for?
We just want to ask you a few questions.
I didn't do anything. Then you won't mind if we come in? Or perhaps you'd rather have the neighbors hear us?
Mr. Ingleson,
Look at all that pour on his wall.
I understand that you were at the local drive-in theater the other night.
They intimidate him, shoving his prior rap sheet in his face, and my suspicions are quickly confirmed as he confesses in his own words.
No, I didn't kill anybody. Look, I couldn't do that. I just wanted to beat my meat.
The officers search the house just in case, and we spend a lot of time with just one of the two officers talking to Orville and asking him lots of personal questions.
Mr. Eagleson, my partner thinks you murdered those people. Did you?
No.
Can you prove it?
No.
One good cop, bad cop routine later, they request permission to search his car, which he agrees to, but acts even stranger, asking them to pretend like they're friends of his so the neighbors won't know they are police and find out about his past.
Sure is good to see you fellas again. It's been a long time. Yeah, I'm still driving the same old car.
His dialogue is too try-hard, I feel, but it's quickly put to an end when one of the officers pulls a bloody shirt from the car. Orville bolts and they give chase, eventually catching him while attempting to climb over a fence. He frantically claims that he had just hit a dog with his car last night, and after being booked is soon released when the blood test confirmed that he was telling the truth. Back at the drive-in, we find ourselves in yet another familiar situation. Couple in a car, pervert watching them, even though he swore he wouldn't come back here again. At least the cops are there this time, though. And dude's disguise is hilarious. The banter?
Well, you look just gorgeous, sweetie.
You sound just like a horny husband.
You can tell they tried to be funny with it, but something about it just isn't quite there. Back to our new random couple in the car. Dude is angry that his lady is way too into the movie and isn't responding to any of his moves. Eventually, he storms out of the car.
Well, then, damn it, you watch the picture by yourself.
Around the same time, Jeremy alerts the officers to the strange man, and Austin comes up running and yelling at Jeremy, and also yelling at the cops. Odd pacing choices, honestly, but somehow I'm strangely hooked into the movie at this point. It's not good, honestly, but I just want to see where it's going.
What the hell are you doing here? What did you do? Come in here, flash your badge, scaring hell out of my people? Or did you pay like everybody else?
It's a public theater, isn't it? And we paid.
Minutes later, Angry Dude returns to his car, only to find his chick decapitated.
Kitano wins. Fatality.
Help! Someone, please! She's dead!
Apparently Orville has been murdered too. All the while, the incompetent cops were arguing over how the one disguised as a woman is supposed to be able to take a piss break in such attire.
You're a woman!
Comedy at its finest? Austin is now brought in for questioning since his history of knife throwing has made him the subject of interest now, as well as his attitude. The officers clear him quickly, but push Austin to close the theater down, at least until they can catch the killer. But since the murders are having such a positive impact on business, he pitches a fit over the idea.
We can get a court order and close it for you.
Well, that's the only damn way you're going to do it.
We're trying to catch a killer, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, and a pretty poor job you're doing of it, too.
He also fires Jeremy.
And I'll tell you something else. When you get out of here, you come down to the theater and you pick up your stuff. I don't want to see you around there again.
Suddenly, the entire scenery changes as we find Jeremy walking around a carnival, while the voices of the officers and his boss sound off in his head.
All he does around here is jerk off.
Not true. I work.
You sure you want to talk to a piece of puke?
It's Garmy. The great Garmy.
I'm unsure if this is a hallucination, he's actually traveled to a nearby carnival, or what's going on, but it's pretty creepy, honestly. For at least this part of the movie, I started to feel a little bad for Jeremy. Even if we know very little about him, whatever the hell these scenes are help to paint his mental state pretty clearly, I'd say. Back at the station, our officers get a call about a machete-wielding maniac.
They got a guy cornered in Jensen's warehouse. Just wiped out 2 people with a machete. Sounds like him.
We cut to a warehouse somewhere where he's holding a woman hostage, and after some long suspense-building dialogue and crazy talk, she bites him and manages to escape.
Don't you understand? You gotta die now. You gotta die now or you ain't got no meanness in you. No, you be quiet. Just close.
Now this is where the movie kind of loses me a bit. I don't know who this machete-wielding dude is, he just popped up out of nowhere, and it's like we're in a totally different movie suddenly.
dumb bitch.
It's shot well, it's scary, it's cool honestly, but I just think with all the time we've already invested at the drive-in location, this sudden switch up to a closed-off warehouse was a wrong move. The scenes just went on far too long, almost as if in real time they were waiting while filming for the cops to actually arrive. The sound of sirens suddenly drive off the weirdo right as he lays hands on the girl, and our cops run inside hunting the suspect. Now, surprisingly, these scenes are suspenseful. It may be due to the low budget, but the long holds work to its effect. Quick cuts in the light might have ruined the moment in this kind of film. After all, it's not an action film, and the lack of music really helps this. We get a buildup of slightly faster cuts and heartbeat-like music which increases in pace and volume as the suspect is finally located. Of course, neither cop can seem to get a clear shot off at what you'd think would be an easy target. Eventually, he walks right into his own death, and the little girl just comes walking up damn near immediately out of the dark. Like, damn, they had guns. They could have shot your ass like that. Nah, this was the 1970s, and cops didn't have itchy trigger fingers, weak hearts, and minimal training. Anyway, surprisingly, she comes out in the wacko's defense, stating that he was her father who was mentally ill and had broken out of a nearby hospital just that morning.
My father, he didn't mean to kill my mother and my aunt.
What? So all that was utterly pointless?
Guess so. Later, when Jeremy is collecting his few belongings, getting ready to leave the property, Arlene attempts to stop him from approaching Austin one last time.
Arlene?
Jeremy, don't go in there. He doesn't want to see you.
He's got to.
Jeremy claims that he is owed money, however, and that he has a special gift for him as well.
I want my money. And give him his present.
All right,
Not even a minute later, we see the silhouette of Austin being chopped up with a sword over the projection of the movie.
Oh, holy shit!
The officers see this as well as Arlene, and once inside, they discover the body of both Austin and Jeremy.
Well, I wonder who the killer is.
And how are we possibly going to tie up this many loose ends this far into the movie? Well, we never find out, as we are instead treated to what I guess was an imaginative end at the time if you actually did see this movie at a drive-in theater, but holy shit, what a letdown on VHS! It's followed by this fake announcer-type voice designed to scare horny teenagers into getting the hell out of the parking lot as fast as possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the manager. Do not panic. There is a murderer loose in the theater. I repeat, do not panic. The police are on the way.
And that's it. Then it just ends. What a disappointment. Especially considering the cover. Now, I understand, obviously, the charm of a sexy VHS cover selling me a bad movie, but they went way overboard with this one. Not once do we ever see this awesome skull-cloaked, sword-wielding, badass motherfucker. It both pisses me off, and it makes me happy in a way I can't explain. Let me move over a little bit. Alright, do one more.
You're like, dude.
Do another one.
Do me, yeah.